About 2,500 years ago, in the city of Kapilavatthu in India, there lived a wise and powerful king called Suddhodana. He was much loved and respected by his people because of his kindness and justice. His wife, Queen Maya, was a very beautiful woman, and what was better still, she was good and pure. So far these good people were childless, and they only needed a son to complete their perfect happiness. One night, Queen Maya had a wonderful dream. She saw a huge white elephant come into her room. It was holding a lotus flower. The elephant blew its trunk as it was walking round her bed 3 times. In the morning, the king asked his wise men about the queen's dream. They said,
"O king, a great son will be born to Queen Maya."
The king and queen were very happy with this news. Before giving birth to her child, according to the custom at that time, she asked for the king's permission to return to her parents' home in Devadaha for the childbirth. On the way to her parents' home, the queen took a rest at Lumbini Park, a wonderful garden where flowers filled the air with sweet odor, while swarms of bees and butterflies were flying around, and birds of all color were singing as if they were getting ready to welcome the queen. As she was standing under a flowering sala tree, and catching hold of a branch in full bloom, she gave birth to a prince, Siddhartha, who would later become Buddha Gautama. The memorable day was the full moon day of Vesak, in May, in 623 BC. All expressed their delight to the queen and her noble baby prince. On the naming ceremony, many learned Brahmins were invited to the palace. A wise hermit named Asita told the king that 2 ways would open for the prince: he would either become a universal ruler, or would leave the world and become a Buddha. At first the king was pleased to hear this, but later he was worried about the statement that the prince would renounce the world, and become a homeless hermit. In the palace, however, delight was followed quickly by sorrow. 7 days after the childbirth, Queen Maya suddenly died. Her younger sister, Pajapati Gautami, the second queen, became the prince's devoted foster mother, who brought him up with loving care. Although grew up in a luxurious life of a prince with full of glory, he was kind and gentle. He received excellent education in both Vedas, and the arts of warfare. Though he was young in age but he was old in wisdom. The king felt great pride in his son, but all the time he recalled the hermit's prophecy. Then he surrounded him with all pleasures and amusements and young playmates, carefully keeping away from him all knowledge of pain, sadness and death. When he was 16 years old, the king Suddhodana arranged for his sons a marriage with the princess Yasodhara, who bore him a son named Rahula. Although raised in princely luxury and glory, surrounded with splendid palaces, his beautiful wife and well-behaved son, he felt trapped amidst this luxury like a bird in a gold cage, a fish in a silver vase. During a visit to the outskirts of the city, outside the 4 palace portals, he saw the spectacle of human suffering: an old man with white hair, fallen teeth, blurred eyes, deaf ears, and bent back, resting on his cane and begging for his food, a sick man lying at the roadside who moaned painfully, a dead man whose body was swollen and surrounded with flies and bluebottles, and a holy ascetic with a calm appearance. The 4 sights made him realize that life is subject to all sorts of sufferings. The sight of the holy ascetic who appeared serene gave him the clue that the first step in his search for truth was renunciation. Back in his palace, he asked his father to let him enter monkhood, but was refused. Nevertheless, he decided to renounce the world not for his own sake or convenience, but for the sake of suffering humanity. At the age of 29, one night he decided to leave behind his princely life. After his groom Chandala saddled his white horse, he rode off the real palace, toward the dense forest and became a wandering monk. First, he studied under the guidance of the leading masters of the day. He learned all they could teach him, however, he could not find what he was looking for. He joined a group of 5 mendicants and along with them, he embarked on a life of austerity and particularly on starvation, as the means which seemed most likely to put an end to birth and death. In his desire for quietude, he emaciated his body for 6 years, and carried out a number of strict methods of fasting, very hard for ordinary men to endure. The bulk of his body was greatly reduced by this self-torture. His fat, flesh, and blood had all gone. Only skin and bone remained. One day, worn out, he fell to the ground in a dead faint. A shepherdess who happened to pass there gave him milk to drink. Slowly, he recovered his body strength. His courage was unbroken, but his boundless intellect led him to the decision that from now on he needed proper food. He would have certainly died had he not realized the futility of self-mortification, and decided to practice moderation instead. The 5 mendicants left him, because they thought that he had now turned away from the holy life. He then sat down at the foot of the Bodhi tree Agaya, and vowed that he would not move until he had attained the supreme enlightenment. After 49 days, at the beginning of the night, he achieved the knowledge of former existence, recollecting the successive series of his former births in the three realms. At midnight, he acquired the supreme heavenly eye, perceiving the spirit and the origin of the creation. Then early next morning, he reached the state of all knowledge, realizing the origin of sufferings, and discovering the ways to eliminate them so as to be liberated from birth, death and reincarnation. He became Anuttara Samyak-Sambodhi. His title was Shakyamuni Buddha. He attained enlightenment at the age of 35, on the 8th day of the 12th month of the lunar calendar, at the time of the morning star's rising. After attaining enlightenment at the age of 35, until his Mahaparinirvana at the age of 80, he spent his life preaching and teaching. He was certainly one of the most energetic men who ever lived. 45 years he taught and preached all day and night, sleeping only about 2 hours a day. His teaching were very simple but spiritually meaningful, requiring people to put an end to evil, fulfill all good, and purify body and mind. He taught the method of eradicating ignorance and suppressing sufferings. He encouraged people to maintain freedom in the mind to think freely. All people were one in the eyes of the Buddha. He advised his disciples to practice the 10 supreme qualities: compassion, wisdom, renunciation, discipline, willpower, forbearance, truthfulness, determination, will, and equanimity. The Buddha confirmed that any beings who sincerely try can also be freed from all clingings, and become enlightened as the Buddha. The Buddha never claimed to be a deity or a saint. Like us, he was born a man. The difference between the Buddha and an ordinary man is simply that the former has awakened to his Buddha nature, while the latter is still deluded about it. However, the Buddha nature is equally present in all beings. At the age of 80, after completing his teaching mission, he entered Nirvana at Kusanara, leaving behind millions of followers. Among them were his wife Yasodhara and his son Rahula, and a lot of priceless doctrinal treasures considered even today as precious moral and ethical models. Thanks for watching. Like, share, comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.